All right, good morning, class. Today we're going to go over Chapter 3 and some of the safety requirements that need to be presented in terms of robotics as we use the robots in our lab and as you go out into the workforce and start to utilize robots out there as well. So our objectives today are threefold: discuss general safety practices for the workplace, discuss safety practices related to tools and equipment, and describe guidelines, barriers, sensors, and overload protection for robotic safety as well. Now, I will, in some of this, it is the expectation that you already have a pretty good and strong background in OSHA requirements in terms of some of the general safety ideas that go over. We, of course, cover that in our OSHA safety course here when you're in that particular class. And, of course, every one of our labs and classes also go over the safety requirements in those classes. So I'm not going to go back over some of the things. I'm going to be briefly mentioning the stuff that's in the chapter that deals with general safety here. So it is your responsibility, of course, to know and understand what your workplace safety practices are. Those vary from one work site to another. So, that idea here is you need to have a safety awareness of what's going on around you to protect both yourself, your others, company tools and equipment there as well. Anything that you've basically given some responsibility for. You always, and you all know this, need to wear your PPE. For us in the robotics lab, we need to have closed-toed shoes, safety glasses, no loose-fitting clothes, no dangling jewelry. We might need to make sure that we've got on long pants and generally either a short sleeve shirt, or if you do need to wear a long sleeve shirt, just make sure that the sleeves don't hang down and that they're not going to be in the way or get caught in anything, just as normal practice goes. Make sure too that you are be careful of any type of hoodie or outerwear clothing that you might be wearing too. Make sure that you are aware of any electrical, pneumatic, and hydraulic hazards. I will go over those independently as we start to as we work on those in the class. Be aware of fire hazards, where fire equipment is located, and of course understand how circuit breakers and fuses are important safety devices. And again, when we get to that particular aspect of the class, looking at our robots, we'll go more into each of those as well. Tools and equipment. So the text, of course, has information both on hand tools and power tools and making sure that equipment is grounded again. So I expect from where you're at in your current education that you will already know and be informed about all of this. If not, make sure it is your responsibility, your right to know. Come up to me, talk with me if you are not aware of any of the hand tools or power equipment that we might be using in the lab. See me first before you use it so that we can go over that. And of course, we will keep everything neat and organized to make sure that it's there and available and people can find it as they need it. All right, so here's one of the things that I'm going to kind of go over. I'm going to break out of the textbook a little bit here just to make you aware of some of the things that go on. Now, notice I'm mentioning that we need to consider these safety considerations both during installation, operation, and of course maintenance. Now, robots in general are for the most part safe statistically. They are not the leading cause of injury or workplace death. There are other things that contribute more to that. So fatalities are not statistically, you're going to be in pretty good shape. That doesn't mean that we don't still need to be aware of the hazards that are associated with this, and we want to make sure that we're following safe practices. Now, we mentioned in Chapter 1 Isaac Asimov and his rules of robotics. They are great, awesome rules. There are engineers and other people in the robotics world that are kind of incorporating those rules into it. However, with where we're at in robot technology and the development of robots, let's just say that that autonomous robot is not quite there to have any type of feasible responsibility to know and understand when they are hurting or killing a worker. So you still, we as the humans here in this case, Isaac Asimov's laws for robotics aren't quite practical, and we're not there yet with where we are with robots and artificial intelligence. So I want to go over a couple of things here in this particular safety video. There have been studies, and this is the newest, according to, I think this was like July of 2023. I'm going to click on a couple of these here for a second. So as we get into them, so 41 workers were killed by robots in the U.S. between 1992 and 2017. So that's a pretty long span. So we're talking about 25-year span, 41 workers, a little bit more than one, so about 1.5 workers a year were killed on the job by robots. So you can go in and look at this particular website. So it is corroborated. I've got 2 links kind of referencing this same study here for you. Notice that statistically 85% of those killed were male. Most of the individuals killed, about 29%, were ages 35 to 45, so bear that in mind. So, and they were largely geographically clustered within the Midwest, about 46% of the total. So those are some interesting statistics, and we want to make sure that we're paying attention to these statistics as we go, so that you know and are thinking about it, are conscientious about it, both here at Richland while you're in our lab and when you're out there on the job working at the companies and implementing this robotic principles there. Again, the incidents involve the robot striking an individual while operating under their own power during maintenance of the robot. So let's go back here and look at the next one here. So this particular article as well, so we'll kind of click on this link here. So kind of this is the Safety and Health website for Safety and Health magazine. So again, worker related highlights to safety challenges. So read this again. So it kind of breaks the same down, references the same study. So we still have some work to do to protect workers and make sure that statistically nobody here in the Decatur area becomes one of those statistics and one of those individuals that's hurt by the robots that we're putting in place and bringing about at our workplace. Now, I do want to kind of mention this as we go, so we're going to kind of go into this last link here in just a few seconds. This is kind of something that is very, very, well, for me, I want to just make this very clear. Back many, many years ago, when I was working for one of the companies that I worked with, in one of their manufacturing plants, there was a young worker that was killed by a palletizing robot. It was very, very sad and kind of impacted the whole organization in some ways. Basically, one of the managers at that plant, they had brought his daughter in over the summer months as a part-time job while she was away. She was home from college, and so she was working to earn some money at that particular manufacturing plant over the summer. There was palletizing robots. The robot itself that did all the palletizing was cordoned off and was fenced in. So I don't recall because it's been a long time ago, but long story short, somehow the interlocks had been let go, or the young employee needed to go inside the fence. Something had happened with the robot. Well, at some point, there was an automatic startup of the robot. The robot swung around and crushed the young lady, killing her instantly while she was on the job. And she was very, very young. So it was really, really sad. I imagine that is probably one of the statistics that is involved in that study. Happened out in Maryland at one of the plants that was in Maryland. So word got around to all of the other manufacturing plants with that particular company. And of course, training was kind of also put in place for those individuals that needed to be more aware of it. But that doesn't, even though the company responded appropriately and accordingly, that still doesn't replace the fact that that young lady, and of course the father that was one of the managers at that plant, lost his daughter. And lives were changed. So do be aware of some of this. I'm not telling you this to scare you or to. I just want you to be aware about it, and I want you to make sure that we are always kind of thinking safely and trying to put things in place. You do have a role as a worker, so obviously we've got the OSHA right to know, but you also have a role to kind of present information and kind of talk with management to make sure that things are safe in that regard as well. Lastly, let's just click on OSHA's website here so we can see this. The hazard evaluation. This is OSHA has a lot of information out there and available to you if you get on their website. It's not always easy to find exactly what you want or looking for, so sometimes it requires a lot of digging, but you can kind of go through. This is one of the reasons why I've put this link in this particular PowerPoint for you so you can kind of see it and go and understand. So there's also some of the different case studies where they actually looked at the reasons why these injuries occurred. And OSHA is very good for case studies if you ever need to kind of look at them and study and say, okay, this is what we need not to do. So that's one of the reasons for those case studies, to be out there so other people can learn from these mistakes. Unfortunately, as grisly and as grim as that kind of sounds, hopefully nobody repeats the same type of thing as we go through that. So here is an incident here with the mold setters where the head was struck by a cycling single-side gantry robot. Okay, 29-year-old male died. So don't, without going in, you can go in and read that to see what the investigators, the OSHA investigators, found when they looked at it. It doesn't really matter. The simple fact of the matter is that a person was struck by the robot when it was moving in the head, and they suffered a injury where they died from it. Another case, the robot was crushed on the platform. So in here we've got this where die-cast operator was pinned by the robot as well. So notice there is some degree here. Obviously, pinch points are very, very critical. And a lot of times these kind of are happening, I think statistically, those of you who are in maintenance, you definitely need to be very, very aware of it, because statistically you're at higher odds when you're working on these robots. So make sure to follow lockout, tagout. Make sure that you have de-energized that robot. Make sure that you are doing everything you need to make sure that that robot's not just going to jump and start moving on you when you don't expect it. So I'm going to end this particular PowerPoint right here. So we've kind of gone over those. I'm going to come back in the next one and we will start to be more specific about robot safety in terms of our lab and in terms of what you need to know going into your workplace and what you should be putting in place on your plant floor.